What's up, Derek? How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good.
Well, yeah, you won that. You went perfect, undefeated in that last tournament.
3-0.
Yeah, and what deck do you use?
Raditz. But not just any Raditz, the best Raditz, Black Raditz.
What? Okay, explain what Black Raditz is.
Well, everyone in the world who is wrong plays green cards with Raditz, which is not the right way to play Raditz. The right way to play Raditz is to play black cards.
Okay.
And I'm going to show you in a second why that is. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still green, so you gotta have enough green cards. It's not the point of the deck.
Well, let's see that deck profile, man.
First off, this is the rebooted Raditz. The big change that they made to him is that you no longer have to attack a leader to use the warp effect. Now it's just when this card attacks your opponent, to chooses one card in their hand and sends it to the warp. Just great. Pressure as early as turn 1, get rid of a card in their hand. Activate main once per turn, look at the top 5 cards of your deck. For a Raditz, Vegeta, or Nappa among them, add it to your hand. If you did add any cards, then you discard 1 card from your hand. This becomes real relevant as we go on. But the Awaken skill on this one is you have 4 or less life, untap 1, draw 1, and then we awaken. Raditz Brotherly Revival still has the when this card attacks, warp a card from your opponent's hand effect that it had before, but now as long as they have 4 cards in their warp, he has critical, which is awesome too, because the big problem with Raditz before is if you awakened, then you started pressuring that they warp a card from the hand and then take a damage into their hand, so you never really plussing. Now you do. But he has a new auto as well. Place 4 non-black cards from your opponent's warp at the bottom of their deck at the start of your main phase to give this card triple attack. So triple attack critical is pretty strong. Effectively, you want them to be at 8 cards in warp so that they get 4 cards left for crit and 4 cards for the triple attack.
Yeah, I've played this leader a couple times, and it's really fun. It's absolutely one of the best green leaders in the game.
It's definitely slept on at the very least.
Well, show us that magic.
All right. Well, as I said, we do have to start with a couple of green cards. I mainboard 3 copies of Raditz Vengeful Strike. This is the promo from last set. It's a unique blocker, limit 1 for a green. When a card in your opponent's hand is sent to their warp by one of your skills, which is very common, you can play this card from your hand. If your leader card's green, when this card is played, for every 2 non-black cards in your opponent's warp, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards with an energy cost of 4 or less and KO it. So you can just board wipe 1 card for every 2 cards in their warp. Just awesome card. And worst case scenario, it's a blocker for 1. Just cool too. A 15k blocker for 1, also good.
Jesus.
As I said, we do have to have a couple green cards. It is a green leader, so the idea has to start there at least. 4 copies of Raditz Ruthless Adversary.
This card is cracked.
Yeah, you can't play Raditz without this card. If your leader card is Raditz, when you play this card, choose 1, draw 1 card for every 2 non-black cards in your opponent's warp. That is the one we're always going to use. The second one of choose 1 card in your life, add it to your hand, and KO a 1-drop. Not what we use this for. Really, it's just draw 1 for every 2 cards in warp. This real early starts, for 1, pay 1, draw 2 is pretty good. Pay 1, draw 4 is pretty great. Pay 1, draw 7 is incredible.
You did that during the tournament?
I drew 16 against a guy. He did his own Overrealm once, and then I was like, "Oh, perfect!" He was pretty salty about that. But the turn where you get to play that and just pile a big old stack in your hand and then just dunk it on him. My favorite cheese move is to get them to 1 life and win the game with this guy. It's just I make it my goal most games to give this card the win.
That's awesome.
Also, both of these cards searchable off the leader effect.
Whew.
And then the final searchable card main decked off the leader effect is your super combo, of course. This one, when it's played, your opponent discards a card from their hand. So not everything that we do is warp. Some of it is discard. But all of it is hand control.
Exactly. And not many people play the super combo, and you mainly play it for its actual 1 cost, right?
Yeah. So perfect world, go second. Your opponent charged, probably played a card, went to maybe 4 cards in hand. You go into your turn, play a Vegeta, take him to 3, swing leader, take him to 2. It's just awesome start right out of the gate. And then if you get a super combo with it, you get a super combo with it. I find actually, believe it or not, that I don't really need to use the super combo portion of this that often because they run on cards so fast.
Right.
2 copies of Bupo. I'm sorry it's not foil. I've brought dishonor to my family, but
It's okay. You know, just wait on that ultimate deck reprint of it.
yeah, I have foils. They're in my Turles deck. But Turles gotta rep the boy too. This one, everyone knows this card is just topo but green. When you play it, your opponent can't attack unless they pitch a card from their hand.
Yeah.
Just helps with hand discard. 3 copies of Homicidal Clones. Great green negate. It just out power crept Shocking Death Ball completely.
Mm-hmm.
You can play it for free if you're at 5 or less life. You take life to do it. It negates the attack and then plays a blocker. So to negate 2 attacks with a cost of 1. Awesome. And then the best card in the game, Commander Photo. You can't can't play a green deck and not main deck of a copy of it.
Like you said, you can't play a meme deck without the meme card.
If I want to play the memest deck, I can think of Black Raditz and not include the memest card. Doesn't make sense.
Did you actually win a match with Commemorative Photo?
No, not a pre-release. Plenty of matches before. Plenty of gentlemen have accepted the terms, but the pre-release I took wins a little classier. I'll show you that in a second.
See, like, look at how many green cards there are, and then that is all black cards?
Yep.
Jesus.
And we start that with 4 copies of Toa Calling the Hordes. When this card's played, you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, add 1 black android or Demon Realm race card with a cost of 3 or less to your hand, or a black unison card with a specified cost of 2. Among them, shuffle your deck. There are a couple cards that we can add with this. Got some Toas, we got some Miras that we use. We'll get into that in just a second. Most of the time, it's just a 1 cost you can get on the board, and you need some Toas in the warp for some other stuff. But it's just kind of an enabler. There is another 1-drop Toa that searches Demon Realm Race or Demon God cards, and is fine, I guess, but this one works a little better because it searches androids, so it was a nice add once they released that.
Nice.
A classic with a shiny new coat of paint here. The Toa Dark Temptation.
Oh, yes.
This card gives your leader plus 5k when you play it, and they discard a card from their hand. It's a free Overwhelm for 3. Most of the time, believe it or not, I will swing with my leader first to make sure that they... One of the nice things with this deck is you want your opponent to have a higher attack power than you, so you swing into their 15k leader with your 10k, so that they don't get a card and they just lose a card from hand. So I'll swing with like my Unawakened leader first for 10k, then I'll play her, making a 15, doesn't matter, they just discard another card from hand.
See, those are the big brain moves I didn't think about while playing that deck.
If you're Awakened and you're crit, you're making yourself a 20k crit, sure. But if you're not Awakened, being able to swing and not have them take a card into hand and just lose one is very strong. The last little bit of this Toa package we have is 2 copies of Demon God Toa Umbral Might. She's a 15k dual attack. She EX evolves for 2 on top of a Toa with an energy cost of 2 or less. So she can't go on top of the Dark Temptation, but she just goes on top of the Searcher. When this card's played from your hand, you draw a card, which is awesome. Then your opponent may choose 2 of their battle cards and or cards in their hand and send them to the warp, which is something we want them to do. If they send 1 or less cards, you get to choose one of their unisons with 4 or more markers and steal it. So just stealing a Blue Boo unison is pretty gross, or like a Baby Trunks. So there's definitely some ridiculous things you can do with this card. But normally they're not going to want to do that, so they're just going to warp 2 more cards.
This deck is too spicy.
The next part of the package that this deck runs is built around this Mira Arcane Overflow. It's a 3-cost, 20k unit absorb. Choose 1 Toa in your warp and place it underneath this card. Then you search your deck for a 6-cost Mira and put it on top of this. It has an auto when you play it, burst 3, draw 2 cards. So you can fill your Overwhelm or your drop up with it to trigger a good Overwhelm. But really, it's one of the reasons that we run the Dark Temptation Toas. I mean, they're already good, but being able to overwhelm things for free so that you can have Toas in Overwhelm to use, or in Warp to use this, is very good. And then, of course, after that, we have to run 4 copies of the 6-cost. I run this at 4. There are a couple other people in the like Raditz community who've tried this card. They run it at like 3, but I like it at 4 because this one you have to pick a mirror from your deck, not from deck or hand. So you have to be able to keep these in the deck. But when this card is played, you choose one card in your opponent's hand and warp it. You get to choose. You don't get to look at their hand, but you get to choose. So that's good. And then in Activate Battle, once per turn, choose one of your black battle cards with 30k power, place it in the drop area, not KO, just put it in the drop. Then choose one of your opponent's battle cards and send it to the warp. So there's a lot of times where I will just play this dude to just warp a card from their hand, and then when they attack with a battle card later, I'll just drop this guy to warp the card they're attacking with, filling the warp and removing some battle stuff. He's a 30k body, which is cool too, to get a decent attack out of him.
Oh, damn.
We have 4 copies of Dark Masked King, The Pursuit of Power. This is just a 1-drop. It's a 4k, but if your opponent has 2 or more energy and 1 or more battle cards in their warp, this card gets plus 6,000 power, so it becomes a 10k, and it can attack your opponent's battle cards in active mode, which is cool. This helps with dealing with those little like techie 1-drops for different reasons. None of those really affect this deck too much, but there are a lot of them that people will kind of sit behind, and being able to attack into them is pretty cool. But more importantly, the Activate main for 1 black. If your opponent has 5 or more cards in their warp, choose 1 black King Vegeta Xeno card with an energy cost of 6 or less in your deck or hand, and play it on top of this card. Then shuffle your deck if you look through it. So, naturally then, we have to have a 6-cost King Vegeta, which is a Kingdom Lost. It is a unique double strike with barrier, 19k, which is just a frustrating number in itself. They have to combo something to get over it. When this card is played, choose 1 card in your opponent's hand or 1 of their battle cards and send it to the warp. As you can see, the warp trend continues. And then once per turn, if this card is in rest mode when your opponent attacks your leader card, your opponent must choose 1 card in their hand and send it to their warp first. So it just kind of pressures your opponent into taking some attacks off of your leader later if they don't want to lose more cards in their hand. In the best case scenario, Activate main for 2 black. If your opponent has 3 or more cards in their warp, you can just play this card from your hand. You don't have to go off of the 1-drop, but I like that this will fetch it from your deck if you need it. Help set up some defensive plays later.
Yeah, that card has ruined my day before.
I love this card. We've got 2 copies of Demon God Demigra, the Power Unleashed Overwhelm 5 for 2, or Dark Overwhelm for 2, which is very doable in this deck. When this card is played using Overwhelm or Dark Overwhelm, draw a card, then choose 1 of your opponent's battle cards, send it to the warp. Then every time it attacks, your opponent chooses a card in their hand and sends it to the warp. If you can Dark Overwhelm this guy out, warp a battle card, swing it, warp a card from their hand, swing a leader, warp a card from their hand with crit. You can see how the warp shenanigans just continue to pile up.
That's insane. I remember when that card first came out.
Oh, man.
Good times.
This is a slightly new addition to the deck. It was Secret Identity Mass Saiyan 4, but RIP the boy recently hit the ban list, or will Friday. This card essentially kind of accomplishes the same thing. That one was Overwhelm 6 for free. When you played it, choose up to 6 cost with your opponent's battle cards and warp them. This one is Overwhelm 6 for 1. When it attacks, choose 4 cost worth of their cards and warp them. So it still kind of gets the same thing across, and it's when it attacks, which is cool. Nice thing, this one has critical, so a 30k crit in addition to a hand destruction deck is pretty strong.
Oh, just all the warp, all the crit, all the hand destruction.
Yep.
It's nuts.
We have 3 copies of SS3 Tag Team Son Gohan. I'm not going to play a black deck with Overwhelm cards that doesn't have a Gohan in it.
Oh,
You're going to play this card
all.
for free when the black battle card leaves play by a skill. Plenty of ways for that to happen. And a blocker helps a lot, especially in a deck where you kind of want to stay unawakened for a little while. Having a blocker is really nice, just like that one from the 1-drop from before, the promo. Giving yourself essentially an extra blocker is good. The secret rare of choice for this deck, Supreme Kai of Time, Space-Time Unraveler. It could really be a lot of things. It could be Pan, it could be Wicked Saiyans, I've tried that. It could even be the new Invader's Vow from this newest set. But this one, it combos for 1, but when you can then pay 1 more to play it. When you play it, your opponent can't attack with leader cards or leader in unison cards. Yeah, leader in unison cards for the turn. so it's a great defensive card. But more importantly, activate battle, you can pay 1 to warp this card, or to remove this card from the game to warp all of your opponent's battle cards in play. Which there are some times where you can hit like 5 or 6 cards with this to the warp, to then just be able to play the Raditz that draws cards for every card in their warp. That piles up really, really fast. So I just go with this one.
Solid. That has ruined my day playing against it with blue. It just completely shuts me down.
2 copies of Protector of the People.
Of course.
Of course. It's a good negate. Your leader doesn't have to be black. For 1, it negates the attack. If you choose to discard another card, you can then give yourself some additional plus 5Ks for every time your opponent would attack you. Believe it or not, we don't need that a ton in this deck because there aren't a ton of hands that can keep up with as often as this makes you lose cards. So there aren't a ton of attacks you have to deal with getting over. But if you do get to a situation where someone does have enough to keep throwing some attacks at you, it's nice to be able to buff yourself up over those.
Yeah,
and then
makes sense.
The final card for the deck, and the absolute sauce, is Shenron the Wish Granter.
Yeah, there's probably some people looking at this like, Derek, what are you talking about? Please explain to the people.
Yeah, I bet this card has... I mean, this card's been played in like a deck ever, but it works really well in this one. It can't attack. It's a 5 cost, sparking 7. Auto, when this card is played, that's a really, really key thing to this card. When this card is played, it's not an activate main. So you tap out for 5, play this card. The only deck you have to worry about is blue. If they God Sealing it, that sucks. But against green, Frieza doesn't matter because it's already played. Yamcha doesn't matter because it's already played. Yellow, if it's tapped, it's already played. It doesn't matter. The Trunks is the only one you got to worry about. So you just attack with your leader into their unison all game long, and that's what you want to do anyway. So don't have to worry about it too much. But when you play this card, you draw 2 cards, then choose one of the following effects. Choose up to 4 of your energy, switch him to active mode. Cool, I guess. Makes this guy a 1-drop. Draw 2 cards. If you really needed to draw, I guess you could use that. You're never going to do that, though. You could choose 1 battle card with an energy cost of 3 or less from your drop area and play it. That, I guess, could be used to play Amira again to start a new chain, but you're never going to do that. What you're really going to do is you're going to choose one of your leader cards or battle cards and give it plus 15,000 power and triple strike for the turn. 30k, triple attack, triple strike crit.
Good lord. How many games did you win with this strategy?
It was best of 3. I 2-0'd all 3 games, and I took 4 of the 6 games with it. Chef's kiss.
It's how good did it feel?
Yeah. People remember Gogeta 7. This is that, but more fun.
Yeah, that is... When you were telling me you were thinking about that on the way up there, I was like, dude, if you win this and win with that strategy... Yeah. And look at you. You did.
I did. I won a lot of games. Raditz did it. I will show you my sideboard, too. Sideboards, of course, are real subjective to whatever your meta is. But I ran 2 SS Bardock's. The Unison, it hurts your opponent's combo plays. Specifically, this is just in case anyone played like Cooler Mill or something, and I needed to get rid of like Beerus's or stuff like that. Having my deck milled out in a deck that wants to draw 16 cards off a 1-card effect is problematic, so I run 2 copies of that.
Yeah, one of our teammates runs Cooler Mill, so we know.
Yeah. 2 copies of the Untapped Hate card. Every color has one of these. Every sideboard should have 2 of these.
Absolutely.
This is a little bit of the same thing, so I'll show them both at once here. But we've got 3 SS Vegeta Majin Exterminators and 2 Dabura Ritual at hands. Both of these cards have the effect that when they're discarded from your hand, you draw some number of cards and play it. Vegeta is, if it's discarded from your hand, you draw 1 card and play it. If he's discarded from your hand, you pay 1 and play him and draw 2 cards. More often than not, I will play the Vegeta over the Dabura because he's free. Draw 1 card is fine. It's also searchable off my leader effect on the front side. This card put in a ton of work for me at the event. I sided in a lot. I played against a number of green decks, so having a little bit of hand destruction response to my own hand destruction deck was very beneficial. I was very happy to have included these. And then we've got 2 copies of Dark Power Black and Saiyan. There's not a ton of reasons that I want to run this anymore, but it's like a safe inclusion in the side deck.
It was that at one point it was like you have to run these in your main deck even for the longest time.
It really was. Now they're not really as relevant, but it's just a safe inclusion. I didn't really have much else that I really felt I was concerned with. Mostly the hand destruction response I wanted to have. And then I have 2 copies finally of Demon God Toa, Imperial Warrior.
That new spice.
Yeah, part of the format that we played, it was constructed instead of sealed pre-release. But the rule was before you got there, or before the event started, you could buy product, and any product you pulled, you could include. This is really the only card from the set that I think makes its way into the deck, other than Invader's Vow if you really needed a secret rare for the deck. But its effect is EX Evolve on top of a Toa with a cost of 2 or less. When this card is played, choose your opponent's battle cards with a cost of 4 or less and send it to the warp. If ever there's a situation where you are playing an opponent that doesn't use a unison, you just side this one out, side into this one, and it's cheaper. It hits a battle card. Stealing a unison is a pretty enticing situation, but some decks just don't use a unison, so we run this. I didn't have a reason to switch into this. Every deck that I played against either didn't get battle cards on the board long enough for me to care, or they didn't use a unison that I was really concerned with. It was a 3-round pre-release. It was a smaller event, but round 1 was against new Ultimate Cell. I got under it real early. I went second and just started getting rid of cards in his hand, so it never had. As early as turn 3, it didn't have a card to charge even, so I don't think he ever charged past 3 energy, and he just sort of struggled both games from there. Game 2 was against King Cold. He was trying this kind of alternate version of the deck where he was running all the new Squadron Unisons. To try to, essentially using the Empower to cycle through the unisons over and over again so that he could have multiple attacks in a turn.
Yeah.
As opposed to having fewer attacks like King Cold normally does.
Yeah.
It did not work for him. So he sided 10 cards, decided into an aggressive green King Cold package. That one was a little scary because it was almost too fast for me to stop. But I was able to pull the wind from its sails fast enough to kind of stabilize a little bit, and then from there I just ran the table from there. And then the final game was against Blue Green Android 16, and that was another situation where they just couldn't keep up with it. It was a little bit of hand destruction itself, but they never had anything to actually use. 16 wants to combo with a card from its discard pile, which is fine, so it doesn't really need a hand, but then it just gets 1 card on the board. I'm like, okay, fine. I'll warp that battle card later, then you can't use it from your discard pile. So that piled up real quick. Game 2, I sided into the hand destruction protection Vegetas, and anytime he would make me discard a card, I just pitched Vegetas and didn't have a problem with it.
Oof, sounds like you had some perfect matchups.
Yeah, it went well. I mean, it was three good decks. All 3 of them are good.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, hand destruction, if you can get any hand destruction deck under any deck and get it in enough, and they just have to start top decking cards, that's when decks start losing. And this deck has quite a bit of ability to do that. And warping cards is so much more frustrating than getting hand destruction.
Oh, yeah.
Just discarding cards is you can recover those a lot easier. But with hand warp, then you really have to question, what am I getting rid of? I'm never going to see it again in most situations.
Right.
Beautiful thing. Ban list. Gogeta 7, Black Gogeta, it's gone. So don't have to worry about the best black deck in the format anymore, so Raditz gets better there. Black Trunks gets hurt, so the next best black deck isn't going to see as much play. The new black deck, Toa or whatever, isn't very good, so don't have to worry about that. Vegex doesn't really see as much play anymore, so there's just not a ton of black decks that are around to worry about anymore. So the whole non-black battle cards thing stops being as much of an issue here. And it's one of the things that I think people worry about too much with Raditz is that it is, what if they play black? Well, a lot of the problem that black decks have is that they don't draw a ton of cards, so hand advantage is always kind of a problem for black. They get a lot of like free play stuff, or they did before I banned it all, but they don't draw a ton of cards, and so it doesn't matter that I can't draw a ton of cards because they're just not going to have cards. So it's not really even that big of a problem that it has trouble with non-black cards.
Mm-hmm.
Because all it does is I can't play my Raditz to draw cards off of this one.
Oh yeah.
And who cares? I don't get crit on the leader if they don't have black cards, which is fine. I just use the Shenron on the King Vegeta, which already has double strike. So it's just 6 damage. So
I mean,
there's already options.
Yeah, that tournament, second place was playing U7 Goku, and third was playing Trunks Vegeta.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that Raditz topped everything is a great feeling.
Yeah, it was awesome. I've been maining this guy for a really long time. Him and Turles are my boys. I run Big Hair Don't Care, so I gotta represent the boy.
There you go, man.
And it was finally time to take him to something, so glad he did as well as he did.
See, I really hope this blows up, but just know it started here.
Yep. Black Raditz is best Raditz.
Little store in Iowa.
Little store in Iowa.
But man, anybody you want to shout out to, anybody you want to, give credit to?
Well, I mean, just the Big Hair Don't Care in general. The great community, bunch of dudes always talking about Raditz. Obviously, I talk about Black Raditz, the best Raditz or whatever, but even if you want like Green Raditz, play Raditz, it's just cool. So we're always supportive of whatever you want to run.
Right.
People post green lists all the time because it's the kind of default choice. It's a green leader, so you play green cards. And we're supportive of that too. There are a pretty dedicated few of us who are real dedicated to this Black Raditz thing, and it's been brewing for like multiple sets now. And we're finally, I think, in the best place it's ever been. So
that's awesome. I'm so glad this deck turned out to be as good as it was.
It's awesome. I love it.
Oh man, but where can the people find you?
They can find me. I have a YouTube channel myself, CCG Replay. I'll make sure that Phil here includes it in the description.
Oh yeah,
or
link down below
on the screen, wherever whatever wizardry he has. You can always join Big Hair Don't Care Raditz players on DBS. You can also join the Tree of Might if you want to talk about Turles. After they fixed that field card, or sort of field card, the Tree of Might card, he is still very playable green leader. And I just exist in and around the internet to convince people that green is still playable.
There you go, man. Well, thank you so much for this profile, and go subscribe to his channel.
Yeah, and play Raditz.
Yeah, play Raditz.
Play Raditz forever.